Welcome into another edition of Friar Territory presented by Fox One. I'm Kyle Glaser alongside the great Heath Bell. We are here to break down 5 things the Padres need to improve on in 2026 if they want to be a World Series contender. Heath, before we dive into everything the Padres need to work on this offseason, I do want to mention this is the most fun time of year. The World Series begins tomorrow on Friday. Look, no matter who is in it, I always love this time of year. I love the World Series. I've been fortunate enough to cover 8 of them. I have to say, this is the pinnacle of it all.
Yeah, this is the fun time, but for most players, you kind of get jealous and go, "Damn, I want to be there." so
Yeah.
it's I've been a fan to World Series. I've watched just about I think every single one since
Yeah.
I've been alive, even since I was a kid, because my dad was a big baseball fan.
Yeah.
But never got there one as a player, but some maybe I can get there as a coach now. You never know.
Yeah. For the years that you were on teams that were talented, were playoff contenders, got close, was it harder to watch the World Series in those years thinking, oh, man, we should have been there?
'06 with the Mets, yes, it was really hard. The Cardinals beat us. And then '07 with San Diego, when Trevor blew it in Colorado, I felt like we were the only National League team that could have probably beat the Red Sox that year. We couldn't score, but man, we could pitch.
Yeah.
Nobody could hit us. And yeah, those are the 2 years that was probably the hardest. I mean, there was a couple years that in San Diego, I think my last year we got close to the playoffs, but it wasn't. It was more like all these guys are doing really good, and then we just kind of fell towards the end. So that wasn't that hard. The Giants won, so it was kind of like bittersweet because they kind of knocked us out. And if we would have beat them the last game, they wouldn't have gone to the playoffs. So anyway,
Yeah.
but
No
yeah.
question about it.
But
Well,
I enjoy watching it. I'm excited Friday. We got some snacks ready to go, some popcorn. I'm gonna sit there and watch the game, so it'll be a good time.
Yeah, Dodgers at Blue Jays begins at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, and we'll be previewing it here at the end of the show. Before we dive into everything we're going to talk about with the Padres, I want to remind everyone, go ahead and click that subscribe button. This is a great time to get on board here at Friar Territory. We had huge growth this first year. Me, Mike Cameron, Heath Bell. We have a lot of great guests coming on, Padres players, coaches, analysts. We have so much good stuff coming this offseason, so I encourage everyone now, hit that subscribe button, help us keep growing, be on the upward ascent. And we appreciate you as always. And we always enjoy talking to you. So the more subscribers we have, the more conversations we can have. All good stuff. All right, Heath. So the Padres, again, it's important to set baseline standards here, right? This is a good team. They won 90 games. They were in playoff position the whole year. They were in the division title race at the end of the season. This isn't a dumpster fire organization. I know there's a lot of people out there who are mad or frustrated with the way the year ended, but perspective's important, right? Like this is a good team that is a perennial playoff contender. So when we talk about things they need to improve upon, it's not like they need to scrap everything, start from scratch, everything is terrible. It's just, okay, if they want to go from, hey, 90 wins and a wild card team to a World Series contender, there are some areas that need to upgrade. We're going to go through the 5 main ones in order of relative impact. The very first one is the offense versus left-handed pitching. We talked about this a lot during the year. The Padres hit 244 with a 691 OPS versus lefties. And look, over the course of the season, and especially in the postseason, you are going to see some premier left-handed pitchers. And this is an area the Padres do need to focus on to get to that next level.
Yeah, honestly, the best way for them to hit lefties, I would honestly get some coaches that are left-handed throwers and can throw batting practice. Because here's the thing: they're not the lineup isn't going to change a whole lot. So it's either you better work on left-handers, and what better to do it is to get somebody that throws left-handed to work on it in spring training or during the season. That's kind of a coach or a batting practice thrower. Have all those guys left-handed, but they definitely some way need to figure out how to hit lefties, because it's not like they're going to bring in 3 or 4 guys that can hit lefties and all of a sudden it helps everybody else out.
Yeah, a big part of it was personnel. And you're right. We can talk about approach, preparation, but personnel was a part of it. There were a lot of left-handed hitters in this lineup who just objectively are less effective against lefties than they are right-handed pitchers. talk about Luis Ariz, talk about Jake Cronenworth. Gavin Sheets did a good job against lefties this year. I want to give him credit, but there's more thump against right-handed hit pitchers. And the other part was Fernando Tatis Jr. really struggled against lefties. There were points this season where 5 of the top 7 hitters in the Padres lineup you only had 2 guys who were really effective against left-handed pitchers in Machado and Xander Bogaerts. And when Bogaerts got hurt, it took it down a notch, even with the addition of Ramon Laureano. So I do think that bringing in some, you're right, whether it's left-handed hitters who are split neutral, and there are some of those guys we'll talk about here in a second, or some right-handed thumpers, this is an area I do think, yes, there's an approach perspective, but there is also a personnel perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you that way. I mean, the best way to do it is bring in somebody that can actually hit lefties, but you think most of our righties could hit lefties, but it just doesn't work that way, I guess.
And again, a full season with Ramon Laureano will help. Xander Bogaerts staying healthy. Machado is still effective against left-handed.
I think Tatis will have a comeback year. I think for some reason it was up and down. Maybe there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, here's the thing with Tatis. We got to remember, there was that one lawsuit early on in the year, and he probably tried to block it out as much as possible. But, I mean, that stuff affects you.
No question. In terms of the guys on the free agent market who could help with this, and again, a lot of these guys are going to be expensive, so it's not about the realistic possibility of the Padres signing them, but it's about who's available that could potentially help with this. Obviously, you have your big mashers in Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso. Interestingly enough, both the reverse splits guys. Schwarber's actually a better hitter against left-handed pitchers, and Alonso's a better hitter against right-handed pitchers. We also have Josh Naylor and Ryan O'Hearn, of course, the Padres brought in at the trade deadline, who are both, big power hitters, though O'Hearn, maybe not what people quite expect. Both of them are actually very good against lefties as well. Again, Naylor is better against righties, but he's good against lefties. So, and we'll get to the Padres' power issues in a second, but when you look at who are some of the available power hitters that will be on the market, Eugenio Suarez falls into this as well. There are plenty of guys out there who do hit lefties. So there are going to be options. It's just a matter of finding the right fit in terms of payroll, position. There's a lot of other factors, but there are options out there.
Yeah, I mean, O'Hearn, I think is, it'd be nice to see him play for a full season, pretty much out there 5 days a week, if not 6 days a week. Yeah. If we're not going to go with him at first base or, Sheets, maybe Paul Goldschmidt. I know I don't want to go with the older guys, but he's pretty solid at bat, and he's a good first baseman. He's not the Paul Goldschmidt that was in Arizona back in the day, but he's still pretty good.
There's no question. That is certainly an option the Padres could explore if they choose.
He might be cheaper than more of the other guys that you're talking about.
There is no question. He will certainly be cheaper given his age and production level than, the Alonsos of the world. Heath, another thing that the Padres need to improve upon, and you'll notice a theme here that 4 of the 5 areas we're going to talk about are all on the offensive side of the ball. Secondly, or I should say number 4 on this list, is hitting with runners in scoring position. We talked a lot about the Padres not being a team with a lot of power. And if you're not going to be a power hitting team, you need to be a team that is good in terms of situational hitting, taking advantage of the opportunities when you get them. We saw the Padres went 3 for 26 with runners in scoring position during their wild card series loss to the Cubs. Over the course of the season, they were 17th in batting average with runners in scoring position and 24th in OPS with runners in scoring position. So bottom half in baseball in both. So what we saw against the Cubs, while it was an extreme version of their struggles, these were season-long struggles. And again, this is where, yes, adding thump is going to be important, but you also have to find guys who can make consistent contact, because bringing in guys who just strike out or homer, that's not going to help a very key area the Padres need help in.
Yeah, we could use some guys like a couple of years ago that we didn't strike out very much. We're a lot of contact, but you have to remember the first half of the season, the back half of the lineup just did not hit at all. So it was like when the guys Machado got on base or Bogaerts got on base, it was like, well, nobody else is going to get them in. So those numbers are a little weird, or a little bit conflicting in my eyes. But the funny part is I think it's a mental part, because you always want to get up with guys on base. You want to be that guy. I mean, are we just too nervous up to bat with guys on base? And it's like, it's like a pitcher coming in with runners in scoring position. well, they're not my runner, so I don't really care about that guy. No, most pitchers come in the game. It's like, man, I don't want to give up so-and-so's run. They bear down a little bit more. They just, they don't try to do too much. They just concentrate a little bit more, but maybe we got to, the mental part of hitting wise, you got to figure that out because we haven't been this bad in the past. So I think it was just kind of a 1-year fluke, or guys are just kind of, I don't know, trying to hit home runs with guys on base, and that's why they're swinging and missing.
Well, the thing is, this team didn't swing and miss much. It's just there wasn't a lot of impact. So I think it's about they need to add impact, and maybe you can trade a little bit of swing and miss, but you don't want to veer too far the other way. And
we got to swing hard instead of just like, well, I'll just make contact.
And again, there's an approach component here, a personnel component here. And Heath, with that, this is actually a good time to bring in our DraftKings player spotlight and talk about one of the players we mentioned who, in theory, could be a big help for both of these issues. All right, Heath. So the subject of this week's DraftKings player spotlight is Ryan O'Hearn. As we discussed, Ryan O'Hearn, of course, came over from the Orioles at the trade deadline in the deal that also brought in Ramon Laureano. And O'Hearn absolutely, added some impact. He came up with some big homers, some big hits, had a little bit of a slump, in the middle of his stretch with the Padres there, but overall was a very productive addition. We saw at times he did not hit against lefties, despite being really good against lefties, which was an issue in terms of lineup construction. But the big question here is Ryan O'Hearn the Padres' answer at first base for 2026 and beyond, given what we've talked about? Again, needing to hit better against lefties, hit better with runners in scoring position, and as we'll get to, just power and runs overall.
I think he is, but if they make Ryan O'Hearn our first baseman, and like I said, he plays 5 to 6 times a week, I think he's the answer that the Padres need at first base. I think he traditionally, here's the thing is, in the past with hitters, we'll get them from other clubs, and then all of a sudden they play 3 times a week or 4 times a week, where with their club, they were playing 5, 6 times a week. There's a rhythm. There's, a confidence thing. As soon as you are like, say, Ryan O'Hearn gets up there and he hits against righties, and then lefties he sits. And he's like, man, I can hit lefties. And then a week later he faces a lefty. He's almost like, well, I'm going to show you I can hit lefties. So you're trying a little too much instead of just, take things slow and do one thing at a time. And I just think sometimes it's mental where, not playing every day and getting in there. One day you can look foolish against lefties on Monday, and then Tuesday you can crush the lefty. It's just, it happens to Machado. It happens to everybody. So I just think that you have to be more consistent with our hitters, with our main guys that are going to play, and stop platooning back and forth. And if we do that, I really do think Ryan O'Hearn could be our first baseman answer.
Yeah, Ryan O'Hearn hit 276 with 4 homers, 20 RBIs in 50 games after joining the Padres at the deadline. Got on base plenty, 350 on base percentage was really nice. The 387 slugging percentage was lower than hoped for. And I think this is actually an interesting point about Ryan O'Hearn. I think people see him as this big, physical, strong left-handed hitter who's got a ton of power. Ryan O'Hearn has never actually hit more than 17 home runs in a season. Last year was his career high. Now, some of that is playing time. However, the last 2 seasons where he has been an everyday player, he's hit 15 homers and 17 homers. His slugging percentage is more in that 420s, 430s. It's not like this is a 500 slugging percentage guy. So that kind of leads to the next question is, given the Padres' power needs, is he the right guy, or should they pursue someone who is more of a 30 home run, 500 slug kind of hitter? And there are a lot of them out there, which we'll get to.
Well, it just depends. Are you willing to pay for a guy that's, with power? Because right now it costs a lot of money, and I don't know if we have more money to spend.
Yes.
So if we're not going to spend a bunch of money, I think Ryan O'Hearn is the guy for us. And if you're going to spend a bunch of money, then you're going to have to let O'Hearn go or whatnot. So it's just it's going to be a financial decision on that aspect.
No question about it. We will see what the Padres choose to do. But again, they do have an in-house option if they want to go that route. They're not completely empty-handed in terms of first baseman. We'll see what they choose to do. Once again, this has been another edition of our DraftKings Player Spotlight. I encourage everyone to go and check out DraftKings right now. There's lots of good stuff going on, and you will hear about it hear from our sponsor right now. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. Play just $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside, in partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Welcome back to Friar Territory, presented by Fox One. All right, Heath, we talked about the first 2 areas the Padres need to improve upon in 2026, offense versus left-handed pitchers and hitting with runners in scoring position. Now, for the top 3 areas the Padres need to improve if they want to get to a World Series championship level. Number 3, innings pitched from their starters. The Padres finished 21st in innings pitched from their starters this season. They averaged barely 5 innings per start. And think about that. If you average barely 5 innings per start, that means half of your starts, or for the Padres, close to half of their starts, they were getting less than 5 innings per start. And while, yes, we live in an era where teams are using relievers more and more, over the course of a long season, you need your stars to log innings so the bullpen doesn't wear down. And as we'll talk about here in a second, so I don't monologue for too long, you need length from your starters in the postseason, which we saw the Padres were not able to get, given where Dylan Cease and Yu Darvish were by the end of the year.
Yeah, starting pitchers kind of set the tone. If you put up a 0 the first 2, maybe 3 innings, the offense feels more comfortable where they don't have to score right away. They kind of feel like the pitching staff's going to, shut the other team down. And if you can get a starter to go 6 innings, it kind of sets up your bullpen, and it kind of makes the other team go, geez, we got to get to their bullpen. If your bullpen's really good, then it's like, oh my gosh, where are we going to score? And they kind of get pushed back a little bit, and your defense just feels better and your offense feels better. It's just all around, and it just really pulls down to it. It's the start of the game. It's like when you hit a home run to start off the game, and then the bottom half, you go out there and go 1, 2, 3. You almost feel like you're going to win this game, but there's 8 more innings. So it's a mindset that when you can get starters to consistently go 6 innings, maybe 7 innings. I mean, look at the guys in the playoffs. Every team is having 1 or 2 studs, go 6 or 7 innings and then give it over to the bullpen. And, if you want to win a World Series, you need a good starting pitching.
Absolutely. The Dodgers have gotten the most innings from their starters of any team in the postseason. And the Blue Jays gotten the 3rd most innings from their starters of any team in the postseason. So the 2 teams advancing to the World Series, both of them are in the top 3 in innings pitched they've gotten from their starters here in the playoffs. And again, during the course of the season, the Dodgers were lower than the Padres in terms of innings pitched from their starters, but it was because of injuries. Once their guys got healthy, they do have the guys who are able to go consistently 6, 7, 8, 9 even we've seen in the postseason. So when it comes down to in the playoffs to be a World Series contender, again, you've got to get innings from your starters and lots of them. I'm going to repeat it. The Dodgers and Blue Jays are 1st and 3rd among all postseason teams in terms of innings from their starters. And oh, by the way, the team that came the next closest to reaching the World Series, the Mariners, they're 2nd in innings from their starters. So again, and yes, they played more games, but they're also on an average basis getting the most. So at the end of the day, for the Padres, going and finding starters who are durable, not just, hey, they have, great stuff or they have this great spin rate. There's guys that they need to get innings from is going to be paramount.
I know. I think you need to find, okay, what's guy that's been 30 to 35? Can I bring him in on a 1-2 year deal, maybe a 3-year deal, who's pitched a lot of innings consistently the last 3 or 4 innings. I mean, 3 or 4 years to kind of say, this guy's going to go he may give up 2 or 3 runs, but he's going to go 6 or 7 innings every single time. It's almost like we're looking for the best stuff, but they don't go long. They run out after the 4th or 5th inning, or in theory, the second time through the lineup, definitely the third time through the lineup. So it's just, we need starting pitcher sets the tone. It always does. When your starter gives up 2 or 3 in the first, you're almost like, oh, it's going to be one of those games again, So, or if our offense scores, ties it up or whatnot in the first, it's like, well, it's going to be a football score today. So,
yeah, in terms of the durable starters out there on the market, look, Dylan Cease is durable, but we saw him really, really struggle in the postseason and a lot of times through the course of the season as well. He made all his starts, but it was a lot of short starts. Again, he's also going to be out of the Padres price range at the point, at least it would make sense to bring him back. It's just not going to be there. Framber Valdez, extremely durable, another 190 inning season this year. Again, he's going to command a lot of money, not some of the Padres realistically will be able to afford. Ranger Suarez has had some durable seasons. Again, he's going to be very expensive, but you look at guys like Jack Flaherty out there. He's been durable. Zach Gallen is probably going to get a lot more than the Padres are going to be able to pay. But again, he's been durable throughout his career, was durable again this year. One thing the Padres have done a good job of is helping guys take the next step to go from, swingmen or guys who don't throw a full starter's workload and helping them get there. Again, you look at Seth Lugo, you look at Michael King. They've been able to do that before. So I do think there are some guys they can look at and say, hey, this is a good pitcher who, for whatever reason, injuries or, just personnel, maybe hasn't gotten a chance to shoulder the load. I do think it would make sense for them to bring in at least one of hey, this guy is consistently at least 160 innings a year, year after year after year. And then maybe one of the other guys where it's like, hey, this guy has the 3 pitches, he has the command, he has the physicality to do it. Maybe he just hasn't gotten the opportunity. I do think that is an approach that could work.
Yeah, that's kind of where, I'd bring 2 candidates in like that, and then just somebody like Walker Brewer that, hey, can we fix them? Can we figure this out? But also put in the back of your mind, like the Dodgers. And I'm not saying the Dodgers is purposely, but they had a lot of their starters and a lot of their guys kind of got hurt and only pitched half a season, and they were ready to go towards, mid to the end of the season, kind of like you, Darvish, a little bit, but we're younger and have filthy stuff. And, you got to find those guys like you said, Seth Lugo and that guys that just haven't getting a chance. Also, I'd look in AAA. Was that starter that's done really well, but like is maybe in the Dodgers organization or the Mets organization that have a lot of good starters, or even the Blue Jays? Look in their AAA system. Maybe they have a guy that just has been doing well in AAA that just hasn't got a chance in the big leagues. Make a small trade, make a minor league trade, and bring him up, and let's see what he can do. And he might turn into something good where he was just gridlocked with that organization.
Again, given Nick Pivetta is coming back, you trust his durability, but Joe Musgrove is coming off Tommy John surgery. Yu Darvish has struggled to stay healthy. Some of the Padres' other pitching options, Randy Vasquez, JP Sears, again, they've each shown flashes. Can they give you 170, 180 quality innings? We'll see. They haven't proven it yet, and that's something that, the Padres could certainly use at least one more arm where you feel good about that. But you're right. There are a number of really interesting pitchers in their early 30s in this free agent class who are coming off down years or injuries, but are talented. And for the Padres, an organization that has done such a good job of helping guys in the major leagues get better, guys who are already big leaguers, but needed to work on something. The Padres have been arguably the best at this of any organization over the last 3 or 4 years. There's a lot of options, right? You mentioned Walker Buehler. Jose Urquidy is there. Herman Marquez is there. Dustin May is there. Guys who, Griffin Canning is there. Guys who have stuff and have had good seasons. They are just coming off of down years or injured years. Tyler Mahle probably falls into this as well. Where, given the Padres, Zach Eflin, former Padres, prospect as well. There's a lot of guys like that could pick up on the cheap, help them get better, as we have seen the Padres do with so many starters. I do think there are good candidates in there. Just have to find which one.
Well, also I look at it this: you got 5 starters in the big leagues. You should have about, well, maybe you have maybe 3 spots in the big leagues that you got to fulfill, but you have probably about 4 or 5 in AAA that you could pay good amount for those guys to, hey, we want you, if you don't make the big league roster, we want you to go to AAA, and we're going to pay you good, and we're going to, basically fix you. And as soon as you're feeling really good, call them right up. So it's not like you're going to find the 5 key guys right off the bat and start off the season. You always need extra starters. That's why I'm big on, you should load up AAA with guys that have been there. And, it's like May is one of those guys, or Bueller's one of those guys that if you kind of overpay a little bit for like minor leagues, big leagues, where you can get cheap and just tell them, say, look, we want to get you right. And when you're right, you're going to be on the big league roster or something like that. So, and you just work with them. So it's a possibility. You just need good starting pitching. And I just hope you just don't go out and really don't get starting pitching, and you get guys that nobody even knows about.
Again, a lot of those guys, Walker Buehler is not going to take a minor league deal, but the principle of, hey, maybe depending on the money, bring them in so you can get them right. Any of those guys I mentioned, I think there's certainly, some validity in that. But again, you can't rely solely on that to get the innings you need. All right, Heath, down to the final 2 areas the Padres need the most improvement on in order to get to the next level. Number 2, hitting for power. Talked about this a lot throughout the season. The Padres finished 22nd in the majors in slugging percentage and 28th in home runs. Now, there's 2 ways to fix this, and realistically, the Padres are going to need to do both. They're going to need to bring in someone from the outside in free agency or trade, but likely free agency. And they are also going to need internal improvements from a lot of their key guys.
There's a third way that when I was playing, that's what they said had to happen, and they did it, and it still didn't work. Bring the fences in. You're going to have to fix some of the guys that, like you said, in-house. It's almost like, hey, forget about making contact. We need you to swing hard every single time. I'm not an expert on hitting, so some of our guys need to, hit a little bit for a little bit more power, or the average needs to be at 300. And, or you're going to definitely need to have to bring some guy that brings in power, that he's a power guy, like Kyle Schwarber, I don't think they're going to pay him, but that's a perfect guy that comes in, and everywhere he goes, he hits for power. I mean, he just hits, his average isn't up there, but his RBIs and his power numbers, his home runs are always, up there. So you got to find somebody with, some solid, Frank Thomas, Mark McGwire power.
And those guys don't come cheap. And again, that's where the Padres payroll situation, having so many backloaded contracts, a lot of guys who are due big raises in 2026 and 2027 makes it tricky. In terms of the internal improvements, I want to start there. So the 3 main guys you look at and say, hey, we could use more from them, or we need more from them in the coming years, are Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, and Jackson Merrill. Fernando Tatis Jr. has hit 25 home runs or fewer each of the last 3 seasons. The 40 home run Tatis hasn't been here for 5 seasons, 2021. Manny Machado's home run total has declined each of the last 4 years. And Jackson Merrill was hurt. So I want to just to kind of paint the picture of how much the Padres need. Even if you give, even if Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado reverse their recent trends and hit 30-plus home runs next year, and if Jackson Merrill stays healthy and gets back up to 25 homers, he hit 24 as a rookie. So even if all of those things happen, all the best case scenarios happen for all 3 of those guys power-wise, the Padres would add 20 to 25 homers. That would take them from 28th in the majors. They would still be in the bottom half. Even if that all happened, they'd be 16th. So again, it'd be better, but not where they need to be. So the internal improvements are a big part of it, but that alone is not going to do the job. It's kind of the first step. You still need to bring in, realistically, multiple power bats to get to top 10, or as we've discussed, top 5, which is where the last 5 World Series champions have been.
Well, you also have to admit the first 3/4 of the season, our bottom half of the lineup didn't really do anything. So that kind of hurt us. I think the guys we have now will help out we would probably be in the bottom 10 instead of like the bottom 4 or 5.
Bottom 3.
But the thing is I think Jackson Merrill, you got to see him another year because he was hurt.
Yeah.
Machado is going to be kind of where he is. I really think if Tatis gets out of the starting, the leadoff position, I think, and you put him right in front of Manny as, second or third, and you have him get some protection, I think he will get up to 25, 30 home runs. Then you have to have somebody protect Machado, somebody that hits for power, maybe not for average or something, but you got to have some kind of protection there. So those guys really haven't had protection in the last couple of years. And, Jackson Merrill was the first year you didn't know what you were going to get, but I think last year he was just hurt.
Yeah.
And I still think he's, 20 to 30 home run guy. He's just going to get bigger and stronger. Hopefully, this offseason he works on that and stays healthier. But it would be nice to have another bat in the lineup that, has some power, consistent power. I don't know who that's going to be, but you need some protection because every great team has a guy that protects somebody else, and that guy does really well because this guy protects them. Because like Tatis with Manny, if Manny was protecting Tatis, but we have never done that. We need to switch up the lineup. I truly believe, because our 2-hole wasn't protecting Tatis at all, and Tatis would get into a funk where he'd start swinging at every ball out there. Yeah. So it does help when you have another power guy to protect your other guys, but I don't know. I don't really see the Padres going out and getting any power numbers because nowadays that costs a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part here, right? And look, I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible, that there's no chance that Manny gets back into the 30 home run range, that Tatis gets back into the 30 home run range. I do think Merrill will get back into the 25 home run range. Having Ramon Laureano for a full year, assuming they pick up his club option, which they should. Gavin Sheets, now that he's a little more established, wouldn't shock me if he gets more into that, 22, 23 homer range. So there is room for internal improvement. But the point is, even if everything goes perfectly, even if it's best case scenario for everyone, they would still be bottom half of the majors in home runs based on the home run standings this year.
Unfortunately, that's what the Padres are going to have to live with for the next 5 to 10 years because they have a lot of big contracts and they're kind of turning into not the best contracts, and you can't really. It's going to come down to a business decision, unfortunately. I mean, when you sign guys to a 10 or 12-year contract, you have to know your last third of that contract is not going to be good. And if they don't perform right away, the whole contract looks not good.
And right now, it's not even the back third of those contracts. It's looking like a full half of those contracts at minimum. And look, Xander Bogaerts, 260, 10 to 12 homers. That's who he is now. Expecting improvement from him, it's just not realistic. Jake Cronenworth has been a sub 400 slug guy for the last 4 seasons. Expecting him to magically hit, 450 slug. It's not a reasonable expectation. That's just not who he is. So you're right. They are going to have to get all of those internal improvements, every single one of them. But this is where the additions are interesting, right? Because you're absolutely right. The guys who hit for a lot of power are going to cost the most in free agency. And a lot of them are first base DH types, which do not age well. And you don't really want to give those guys, especially for the Padres, a 6-7 year, $100 million+ deal, because that just does not age well. And you already have enough problem contracts. They're not going to age well. But going down the list, look, talk about Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, two the premier power hitters in baseball. They will be available. Alonso will opt out. Josh Naylor, as I mentioned, former Padre, he only hit 20 homers this past season, but what was encouraging was he hit really well in T-Mobile Field, which is very pitcher friendly after being traded. And he's someone that absolutely has more power than a lot of the Padres' current options. We've talked about Ryan O'Hearn. Rhys Hoskins is out there, not that he's performed well recently, but he has power. Again, Eugenio Suarez still can make it rain with the best of them, but he's 34 and he's a third baseman. So he's not going to play third base for the Padres. He'd have to be a DH only. And again, just what does that look like? There's a lot of moving pieces there. Cody Bellinger had another good power year. Trent Grisham had a huge power year. I don't suggest bringing him back. But again, they're center fielders, which the Padres don't need. again, finding the right solution is going to be tricky in terms of position, in terms of dollars, but they're going to have to find someone, and it might have to come from the trade market.
Yeah, you might. I mean, if I'm in the Padres situation and everything is going on, I'm heavily looking at AA and AAA guys, and also the draft. Who's really who's got power numbers, and maybe the first 2 or 3 draft picks go with somebody that has a lot of power, potential to have power, and let's just see what happens. Even if there's a good pitcher that we're going to pass up, because that's kind of what we're going to need in the future. You draft for 2-3 years down the road. And I know a lot of organizations always just say, well, we try to get the best player. Well, sometimes you need to draft kind of like what football does. Hey, we need a running back. We go get a running back. We need a quarterback in a couple of years. We need to go get a quarterback now and see what he can do. So it's hard because your power positions are the outfield, and we only have one outfield spot. The outfield's kind of full. We've got 2 guys under contract, one that we might pick up. So now you're just looking for a 4th outfielder. Our infield, except for first base, is kind of locked up.
And that's why you need to go get a big power hitting first baseman and sign a first baseman, not sign the shortstop and say, we'll figure it out later. Signing a shortstop, moving Bogarts to second, Cronenworth to first might help defensively, but it's not going to give you the power upgrade you need. So I think for the Padres, it's really important to do that. And regarding the draft, you never draft for major league need, but you can, and we see teams do draft for organizational need. If there is a shortage of a certain position in the organization, shortage of good pitching prospects,
That's what I'm saying.
Shortage of power, you do draft sometimes for the traits of an organizational need. So again, it's certainly an option. All right, Heath, we have run down the first 4 things the Padres need most to address this offseason if they want to go where they have stated they want to go in 2026. We're going to take one more break, hear a word from our sponsors, then we will dive into the number 1 thing the Padres need to improve upon in 2026.
Let's take you through the Arena Club Slab Pack experience. This is part 2 because Todd Father last week pulled a card that he didn't love, yet he sold it back for actually more than what the slab pack cost. This time pulls a card that he likes.
Yeah, and this is the best part of it. Ronnie Mauricio, the Mets standout, rookie sensation. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I like the itch of seeing what you're going to get. I like prospects. I don't love them, but seeing this kind of card is actually absolutely beautiful thing. I know a couple people around town that would absolutely love that card. So there's going to be a lot of conversations going on here for Arena Club.
And what you do is you have it in your digital showroom. If you want to hand it out locally, then cool. You ask Arena Club to send it to you, and they do. Or you can sell it back like you see there. Instant offer for $193, but he's keeping it. And you can do what Todd Father does by going to arenaclub.com/Val and getting 20% off your first card purchase or your first slab pack purchase.
Welcome back to Friar Territory, presented by Fox One. All right, Heath, we have run down the top 4 things, or I should say, the first 4 things the Padres need to do in order to improve in 2026 and become the World Series contender they've stated they want to be. The first, improve the offense versus left-handed pitchers. Second, I should say fifth, number 5 was improve versus lefties. Number 4, improve your hitting with runners in scoring position. Number 3, improve the number of innings your starters pitch. Number 2, you got to improve their power hitting. And the number 1 thing, and this all kind of ties a lot together, it's just straight up scoring. The Padres were 18th in runs scored this past year. The last 10 World Series champions were all top 10 in the majors in scoring. And that will continue this year. The Dodgers were 2nd in the majors in scoring. The Blue Jays were 4th in the majors in scoring. So no matter who wins, that trend will continue. I have also mentioned the last 5 World Series champions were top 5 in home runs. So it's everything, right? It's not just, they just need to add power and they'll be set. It's all of it kind of ties together. They have to improve against left-handed pitchers. They have to improve hitting with runners in scoring position. They have to improve their power. It is a comprehensive process, but the offense as a whole needs to be the main area of focus if they want to get where they want to go. If they are not a top 10 offense in runs scored, they are not a World Series contender, plain and simple, end of discussion.
Yeah, I don't know what happened the last couple of years. It seems like, the Padres, I know we traditionally have never been the best hitters and whatnot, but you got to have 3 or 4 guys hitting above 270. It seems like everybody's below, if we have a really good hitter, he's batting 260. We don't really have a 300 hitter with power. We don't have a 290 guy with power. It seems like, well, we'll hit 40 home runs and, he's only hitting 240, 250. And it's like, if you want to score runs, guys got to be on base. Guys got to be, getting hits year in and year out. And that's how you win ball games. You just outscore the other team. And you can't have, we have some close games and then everybody hits when we win 15-1 or something like that. And then we just don't hit for a week. So hitting's contagious and we need somebody that can hit consistently. So it's, scoring runs is huge. It really is. And I just think it's a big part of what the Padres need to win a World Series is they just need to be a team that it's not like, hey, they have the best pitching, and a few good hitters. It's, hey, their offense is stellar. I think they have potential to be that, but it's everybody has to have their best years. And that just never happens.
Again, it's going to be a comprehensive process. We've talked about there are a lot of options on the table in terms of established hitters. Again, a lot of them in free agency are going to be outside of the Padres price point. I mean, I didn't even mention Kyle Tucker because he's about to get formed in millions. So there's no reason to have that conversation.
What about that Japanese guy that hits home runs?
Yeah. So the Padres have been very, very active in Sky Japan over the years.
Did you, Darvish, know anybody over there?
There's some good power hitters. What I'll say is, Munetaka Murakami, who is being heralded as a premier Japanese power hitter and did have a 56 home run season a few years ago in Japan. What a lot of people are missing, and I've covered baseball in Japan for a long time and kind of led BA's, scouting reports out of there. He's declined. He's had some injuries. His contact ability has really declined. He's missing, low 90s fastballs. He's not trending in the right direction. He's a bigger guy. There's questions about where the body will age well. Kazuma Akamoto reportedly is going to be posted. He's a big right-handed power hitter. So there are options in Japan. The Padres can certainly look there. Again, it's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be getting internal improvements, finding guys in free agency, trade market, maybe some of the players that are coming over from Asia. It's not a one player comes in and everything's fixed situation. Yeah. And again, it's everything. It's power. It's situational hitting. It's hitting versus lefties. It's the whole picture. So ultimately, that's what the Padres are going to have to do if they want to be a World Series team. And something I want to go back to just to clarify and reiterate. I mentioned that the teams in the World Series are the ones that have gotten the most innings pitched from their starters in this postseason. Dodgers are first, Blue Jays are third, and the Mariners, who were just eliminated in Game 7, were second. Yes, those teams have played more games than anyone else, and that's a big part of why they lead. But even if you do it as an average in terms of the innings they're getting from their starters per game, they're the top 3 teams in the postseason field. So I just want to clarify that, again, yes, it is important. All right, Heath. Now, I want to get your thoughts on the World Series. We've talked about what the Padres have to do to be a World Series contender. Let's talk about the teams that are actually in the World Series, Dodgers and Blue Jays.
Really quick, I would like to have a moment of silence for the Seattle Mariners not getting to the World Series because they're the only organization that's never been there.
Yeah.
And I was rooting for them the whole way.
Yeah.
So
they're a great team. They'll be back. That's a heartbreaker. Up 3-1. There's a lot of discussion about should they brought Andres Munoz in.
I know.
My thing is, realistically, you don't pitch to George Springer there, period.
I would put him on.
First base open. Tying runs on, second and third. Go ahead, run at the plate, and one of the best postseason hitters in Major League history. Out, and Nathan Lucas is on deck. You put him on, take your chances, try get the double play in order, and you face Nathan Lucas instead of George Springer. People saying, well, but then you might have Vladdy, next. You got to worry about the problem in front of you first.
Yeah.
You got to take care of George Springer before you worry about Vladdy, and they didn't do that. So again, at the same time though, I don't want this to just be about, oh, the Mariners made a bad decision. The Blue Jays came back down 2-0 after dropping the first 2 games at home. Their offense woke up. Give them credit. They deserve
they won the first 2 in Seattle. I mean, it was a great series. I mean, you got to tip your hat. Toronto just out-slugged and out-pitched Seattle. It's just a shame. They're the only team that's never been there. So anyway, all right, Dodgers, Toronto.
So let's start from the top. Who you got?
I think the Dodgers have a chance to go in back-to-back. But, and I was rooting for Seattle the whole time, but I felt like Toronto would probably have the best chance to beat the Dodgers. So I'm going Game 7, Dodgers, unfortunately. I just think since they've been there and they're not going to be starstruck, but I think it's going to go to Game 6 or Game 7.
Yeah, I've got Dodgers in 6. Again, I just think the Dodgers, the way their starting pitching is rolling. And look, this is an explosive offense too. A lot of attention has, of course, been paid to what the starting pitchers are doing and, of course, what Shohei Ohtani is doing on both sides of the ball. But they have so many weapons. This is one of the few teams that can match the Blue Jays run for run. Again, over the course of the season, the Dodgers were second in the majors in runs scored. The Blue Jays were fourth. I think when you consider the offenses are pretty even, the Dodgers have a starting pitching advantage. The Blue Jays have a good rotation, don't get me wrong. But the Dodgers is just on a completely different level. The truth is neither team's bullpen has been great or has a ton of great options. The Dodgers have fixed a little bit with Roki Sasaki, but again, I just think when I look at the big picture, I am picking the Dodgers in 6. That said, Blue Jays are no joke. This is a good team. They led the majors in hitting. They led the majors in on-base percentage. They're top 5 in runs scored. They can match with anyone. Rotation with Kevin Gausman and Shane Bieber and Max Scherzer and Trey Savage, who's been ridiculous as a rookie. This is a really good Blue Jays team. So I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, the Dodgers got it, NBD. The Blue Jays are legit.
The only reason I give it to the Dodgers really is because 1, they've been there, and 2, their starting pitching has gone, like Snell and them have gone 8 innings, 7 innings, 9 innings. And Toronto's starting hasn't done that. They've been really good, but I just feel like, good pitching beats good hitting. But I really feel like this is going to be it's going to be kind of a pitcher's duel / all of a sudden the offense, bowler side is just going to jump for 1 inning. And it's going to be back and forth because Toronto's no joke. They could be down. They're never out. I mean, you thought when Seattle won the first 2 in Toronto, everybody was like, oh, Seattle's going to win this. And I'm like, I don't know. Toronto's pretty good. And they just came back, and they just never give up. So it's a team that is just it's very surprising. It's fun to watch, really. So this is kind of this is my World Series that I really think is going to be the funnest World Series. It's not even a word, funnest, but it's going to be a really good time to watch a World Series because, Toronto with the offense that they have, or, the older brother Dodgers that, we all love to hate and stuff like that, but they're a really good team too. They're pitching and defense and Ohtani, and it's just, their offense is good, and Freddie Freeman always comes up big. Mookie Betts is having a good World Series. So it's just, top of the lineup, they both can hit and they both can pitch. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think going back to the Blue Jays again, they beat the hell out of the Yankees in the division series and came back to beat a very good, not only Mariners team, but a very good Mariners pitching staff. They were able to torch them and come up with some big hits and big moments. And they did all that without Bo Bichette, one of their best hitters, one of the best hitters in baseball in terms of pure hit. He might be back for the World Series. We will see. But, the Blue Jays have been going bonkers offensively, not even at full strength. So, again, the Blue Jays will get theirs, and they will have games where they absolutely put a scare into the Dodgers. I just do think at the end of it, when all's said and done, again, Dodgers in 6 are my pick, but I agree. It's going to be a fun World Series. I expect it to be a competitive World Series. It's just going to be a good time all around.
Yeah, it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be close either way, I think. I picked the Dodgers, but it's like just by just a hair. That's really all it is.
Yeah. And look, the Blue Jays having home field advantage, that's big. The Blue Jays have the second best home record of any team in baseball. And they have an entire nation behind them. It's not just Toronto, it's all of Canada. And I saw I think it was someone on the Yankees maybe, or one of the broadcasters made some comment about people in Toronto not knowing baseball. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's one of the most rabid fan bases in baseball. Like, it's a very ignorant comment. And Blue Jays
Toronto's
fans.
always. I played in Toronto. I played. Again. In Toronto, and I played in Montreal. Those fans. I mean, they didn't always show up because the strike and whatnot, but they were always good fans. I mean, they knew their game. They knew their sport. They've always been good fans. They've always been real loyal. And, so if they don't like something, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
But Toronto's always been a place that's been rocking. So I've never played there and it hasn't been almost full. So it's, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the World Series.
Absolutely. I'm not traveling for this World Series, but I will be covering games 3, 4, and 5 if necessary at Dodger Stadium. So we'll have lots of good stuff coming from there. Heath, any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, I just think the Padres need to, they just need to address their offense. I mean, they always find good pitching here and there. And yes, you always need pitching. But here's the thing. I've been on teams that we were one of the best pitching staff or not the best pitching staff, but we had no offense. We didn't go anywhere. We could barely get to the playoffs, or we didn't get to the playoffs. So you got to have offense. You got to have some power. We got to do something, and we can't just keep doing the same thing that we have been the last couple of years if we want to win a World Series. And that's my kind of take on the Padres this offseason. So let's kind of do something different.
Yeah, once again, just to repeat it, because it bears repeating, the last 10 World Series champions have been top 10 in the majors in scoring. That will become 11 this season because both the Blue Jays and Dodgers were top 5 in the majors in scoring. And the last 5 World Series champions were also top 5 in the majors in home runs. So got hit for average, got hit for power, got to do everything. And for the Padres to be a World Series team, that above all else needs to be their focus. Heath, thank you so much for joining me today. We appreciate your expertise and insight as always.
Take care.
All right, everyone, that'll do it for another edition of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Once again, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like button, leave us a 5-star review, talk to us in the comments. We love hearing from you. All the good stuff. It helps us out big time. We've grown a ton this first year, and we are looking to keep it going through the offseason. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thank you for watching and listening. We will see you next week.
See ya.